The starting point of all achievement is desire. Hello, I'm Carla, psychotherapist and mindset coach, and on this channel, I help you get unstuck and reach your goals by exploring topics that shift your mindset so you can live your highest potential. All right, we are continuing the reading of The Science of Personal Achievement from Napoleon Hill. We're starting with the introduction, Burning Desire. The greatest achievements were at first nothing but dreams in the minds of people who knew that dreams are the seedlings of all achievement. A burning desire to be and do is the starting point from where the dreamer must kick off. What is a burning desire? It's something that you truly want from within. I know it sounds so simple. There's a lot of people walking around, really just drifting through life, hoping that they arrive somewhere that makes them feel alive. They want to feel that burning desire within them. And all you have to do to get there is really sit down and ask yourself, what do I want? What would I love? You'll find that it's very rare that we sit down and really allow ourselves to do that without all the peanut gallery, all the limiting beliefs and thoughts that tell us that we can't. Do you have your goal? Do you have your dream written down? Do you review it daily and ask, what am I doing today to get me closer to this goal? Do I feel like I'm living life with a burning desire? It's the starting point of everything. Or where are we going? More than 20 years were spent interviewing America's best known and most successful people, including W. Clement Stone, Alexander Graham Bell, William H. Taft, former President of the United States, John Wanamaker, the Philadelphia Merchant King, Woodrow Wilson, former President of the United States, Harvey Firestone, Dr. Frank Crane, F.W. Woolworth, and Theodore Roosevelt, former President of the United States. In The Science of Personal Achievement, you will receive the means to kindle the fire of burning desire in your life. The 17 universal principles of success explained in this book are a composite of the techniques used by the world's greatest people. They learned these methods through trial and error. Here, you can learn them from someone who researched and organized them at the direction of steel magnate Andrew Carnegie. The 17 principles are listed in a specific order. The beauty of this is that after you have read this entire book, you can then pick and choose the principles on which to focus depending on your current needs. I was born in the mountains of Virginia, famous for three things: rattlesnakes, Mountain Dew, and revenue officers. I never had a pair of shoes until I was 10 years old. I never saw a railroad train until I was 12. Later on, I discovered why my father named me Napoleon. I have a great uncle, or did have before he died, in Memphis, Tennessee by the name of Napoleon Hill. He was a multimillionaire cotton broker. I think if I stopped right there, you'd know why my father named me Napoleon. We expected that he would leave some of his money to me on account of having his name. But when the will was read, when I was at the age of 14, he had left out the entire branch of hills from whence I came. Ooh. And I think that was the greatest favor that anybody ever did me, because I know what happened to the ones who did get the money. Napoleon says, "Would you mind asking what?" All right, Napoleon, what? Nothing, he says. So I, having had no inheritance, had to go to work, and I learned to make my own money. What a great story. The next best thing that ever happened to me was when I was assigned by Andrew Carnegie to devote 20 years to the building of this philosophy. One of his conditions was that I should earn my own way as I went along without any subsidy from him. I want to tell you right now, I thought that was a disaster, but that was another blessing that came into my life. Having to earn my own way, I soon learned how to do it. And long before Mr. Carnegie died, I didn't need him anymore, financially or otherwise. I could make my own way. Carnegie was very smart in throwing me out on my own like that. He wanted me to learn to apply this philosophy as I went along to make it work for myself. And he said, "A success philosopher living in a huddle without any money and his shoes not shined and needing to shave is no good example of selling success. If you want to be successful in helping other people to succeed, demonstrate that you can make your own philosophy work." And I think I have done that quite adequately and at all levels. Well, let me tell you the story of how I came to meet Andrew Carnegie. First of all, when I was in my early teens, I wanted to go away to college but didn't have any money. So I made arrangements with the Tazewell Business College to work my way through and took a secretarial course. When I finished, I looked around and had an inspiration that has been far-reaching and has affected millions of people and will affect millions of people, some of them not yet born. I did something that has never been done before nor afterward, as far as I know, in the way of ensuring that I would go to work for the man that I chose. I recognized that if I picked out a very successful, a very prosperous, a very wealthy man and could work for him in close contact as a secretary, that I would appropriate all the friends and much of his knowledge, and it would be worth a stupendous amount to me. I finally chose General Rufus A. Ayers of Virginia. He owned a railroad, a chain of banks, a chain of sawmills, a chain of coal mines, and in addition to that, he was a senior member of one of the most important law firms in the state of Virginia. I made up my mind that General Ayers was going to have the great fortune of giving me my first job, and here is how I broke the news to him. I wrote him a letter saying, "Dear General Ayers, I have just completed a secretarial course at Tazewell Business College, and I know you will be glad to hear that I have chosen you as my first employer. I am willing to go to work for you under the following conditions. I will work for the first 3 months and pay you a salary of any amount you name per month for that privilege, with the understanding that if at the end of those 3 months you wish to continue my services, you'll pay me that same salary. But meanwhile, you'll allow me to put on the cuff what I'll owe you, and you can take it out of what you'll owe me if you continue my services. Sincerely, Napoleon Hill." That's bold. I guess that put him on the spot, didn't it? He didn't answer my letter. He called my father on the telephone and said, "I want you to send me that boy. I want to look at him." He didn't say anything about employing me. I went to his huge law office. He got up from his desk and he walked all the way around me 3 or 4 times, never opening his mouth. Then he went back and sat down at his desk and he said, "I wish to ask you just one question. Did you write that letter yourself, or did somebody tell you what to write?" I said, "General Ayers, I wrote that letter myself, and I meant every word of it." He said, "That's just what I thought after I looked you over, and you'll go to work tomorrow morning in the secretarial department at the regular beginning salary." In those days, the regular beginning salary was a fabulous $50 a month. Later on, when my brother and I matriculated at Georgetown University Law School, intending to become lawyers, I looked around and made a contract with a magazine to write stories about successful men. Meanwhile, I had become a newspaper man, a cub reporter, and was fairly good at writing even then. Fortunately, I was assigned to Andrew Carnegie, the wealthiest man in the world at that time and known worldwide as being the best picker of men. That's how he became successful. He knew how to surround himself with mastermind allies who could do the things that he needed to have done. And nobody, please believe me, nobody ever rises above mediocrity who does not learn to use the brains of other people and sometimes the money of other people too. We call it OPB and OPM, other people's brains and other people's money. And it takes a combination of the two, believe you me. Oh, it's great. This quote is emphasized here again. It says, "Nobody ever rises above mediocrity who does not learn to use the brains of other people and sometimes other people's money." Andrew Carnegie gave me 3 hours, and when the 3 hours were up, he said, "This interview is just starting. Come on over to the house and we'll take it up after dinner." I was so glad he invited me to his home. If he had said, "Go over to the hotel and come back tomorrow morning," I'd have been broke because I had just enough money in my pocket to pay my way back to Washington. After dinner, we went into the library and he gave me one of the hardest sales talks I have ever had or ever heard in my whole life about the necessity of a new philosophy that would conserve and pass on to the oncoming generations the sum total of what men like him had learned by a lifetime of trial and error method. He said it was one of the sins of the ages that this knowledge gained at such a tremendous price by so many men was buried with their bones when they died, that nobody had ever organized it into a philosophy and made it available to the people on the streets. I wondered why Mr. Carnegie was wasting his time on a cub reporter like me, giving me a sales talk like that. It was way beyond my capacity at the time, yet I was curious and kept my ears open and my mouth shut. Meanwhile, he told me what this philosophy would do for the person who organized it, what it would do for oncoming generations, how it would benefit people not yet born, and then he said, "Now, I've been talking to you for about 3 days about this new philosophy. I told you all that I know about it, about its possibilities and its potentials. I wish to ask you a question, which you will please answer with a simple yes or no. But don't answer until you make up your mind which it is. If I commission you to become the author of the philosophy, give you letters of introduction to people whose help you need, are you willing to devote 20 years to research, because that's about how long it will take, earning your way as you go along without any subsidy from me?" Yes, or no? All right, yes or no? What would you have done if you had been sitting there in front of the richest man in the world with about enough money in your pocket to pay your way back home, who had propositioned you to go to work for 20 years without compensation or sympathy? What would you have said? Well, what you have in mind right now is what I had in mind too. I knew very well that I couldn't do it. Isn't it strange when you put an unusual opportunity before a person, a new opportunity, the chances are 1,000 to 1 that his or her mind will jump immediately to the no can do part of it, to the negative side. We think of all the reasons in the world why we can't do it. I can think of about 3 off the bat. Yeah, why do we do that? When we are presented with a new opportunity, we go right to the reasons why we can't. I remember Bob Proctor, my mentor, once said, any ding dong can tell you why something can't be done. It's easy to believe in the limiting beliefs because lack of faith, all of the obstacles are obvious. Any dumbbell, he said, can tell you reasons why it can't be done, but it takes somebody of real stamina, real faith to try to figure out how it can be done. Okay, so Napoleon says, first of all, I didn't have enough money to carry me for 20 years. Second place, I didn't have enough education to deal with the successful men that I would be having to deal with all over the United States, even other countries. And in the third place, and this was about the most serious of all, I was not absolutely too sure about the meaning of the word philosophy that Mr. Carnegie had been kicking around for the 3 days and nights. So you can imagine what a fantastic thing that question was. A young man with very little education sitting in front of this great man who had offered him an opportunity such as never has come to any other author at any time in human civilization. No author, as far as I've been able to tell, has ever had the cooperation and the collaboration of more than 500 outstanding men to help create a thus far undisclosed and unidentified philosophy of achievement of any sort. 500, that's a lot, yeah. That was the kind of opportunity facing me. And here is an important aspect of this proposal I want to call to your attention. I didn't know this at the time, but I learned about it later. After briefing me for 3 days and nights on the potential of this philosophy, on how it could be organized, and on what it could do, Mr. Carnegie made up his mind that when he put the question to me, he would allow me only 60 seconds to which to say yes or no. 60 seconds, that's all. I didn't see it, but he was sitting there with a stopwatch behind his desk, timing me. It took me exactly 29 seconds to make up my mind and to accept. I had 31 seconds between me and an opportunity such as has never come to another author. I have never known of any author in any field having so much help, so much guidance given, and supplied without money and without price. Wow, this is a big intro, so I'm going to go section by section. That was yes or no on a big decision. So I want to ask you, what opportunities are presenting themselves to you? Are you afraid to step out? Are you afraid to get out of your comfort zone? What are you waiting for? What if there was some magic genie that dropped out of the sky and said, you can have this, and they were holding a stopwatch, and they weren't going to tell you how you were going to make it. They just said, are you willing to do this for the next 20 years? Yes or no? Do you want it or not? Because the time's going to pass anyway. This is a really great example and a great story about really getting out of our comfort zone and saying yes to opportunities, not hesitating, not waiting. I love this story. I love Napoleon Hill. He is such a magical man. I'm really excited to dive more into this book. He goes on to talk about destiny, friendly alliances, our 2 different selves, and the 12 great riches of life. Oh, that's such a good one. And then we're going to dive into chapter 1, definiteness of purpose. So this intro will probably take me a couple videos. I want to make these short. I don't want to make them too long, and I want to be able to kind of chime in and share my thoughts. So I hope you're enjoying this. This is The Science of Personal Achievement from Napoleon Hill. And if you are a fan of Napoleon Hill, I am a certified coach at the Napoleon Hill Institute. All of the links are below. We have wonderful programs. I offer free 30-minute coaching calls. So click the links below, and I would love to help you. Thank you again for spending your time with me. I'll see you next time.